She walked out in daylight, hair pinned back against the heat, leaving the camp to visit the women of the town. The hillside above Shechem was dry and dusty. Goats crossed the rock, and the tents of Jacob's family cut long shadows across the ground. Dinah, Leah's daughter, stepped through the city gate with the steady confidence of someone who had grown up among brothers and knew how to keep her eyes forward when men stared. She went to learn how the women of the land drew water, baked their bread, and bargained in the market. The streets were close and warm, and the air smelled of flour, wool, and olive wood. His name was Shechem, son of Hamor, the ruler of the city. Privilege walked with him. He followed her talk to a courtyard and would not hear no. He seized her, overpowered her, and then spoke softly as if gentleness after the fact could clean what he had done. He said he loved her. He promised to make it right if she would stay. He believed his desire could be turned into a right with gifts and words. He sent for his father and said he must have this woman for a wife. Word reached Jacob before sundown. A man from the city stood at the edge of the pasture and delivered the news in one hard sentence. Jacob stood still. He had learned on long roads how to buy time with silence. He waited for his sons, still out with the herds, and kept his face calm, as if that could hold the camp together until they returned. Hamor and Shechem arrived with offers. They did not come as men seeking mercy. They came as men who thought everything could be negotiated. Name the bride price, they said. Make it high. Let our peoples marry and trade and settle together. Shechem added that his heart was set on Dinah and that he would give anything. The brothers came in from the fields as night thickened, saw the visitors, and heard what had been done to their sister. Grief burned and anger took its place. They listened while Hamor spoke the language of gifts. They looked at Shechem, who had already taken what he wanted and now spoke like a suitor. They answered, but not honestly. They said they could not give their sister to an uncircumcised man. It would be a disgrace to their family and to her. If every male in the city agreed to be circumcised, then they would consent to the marriage and to living together as one people. The words sounded like covenant, but they were strategy. Dinah remained in Shechem's house while the men of the city debated terms that were already decided in the brothers' hearts. In the city gate, Hamor and Shechem held council. They told the men that the Hebrews were prosperous and peaceful. Their cattle and goods would mix with the city's wealth. All that was required was a mark in the flesh that would make the two groups one. The men listened to their ruler and to the young man who wanted a bride. Desire and commerce carried the vote. By evening, the knives were out, and the city agreed to a covenant it did not measure. On the third day, the wound throbbed and each step hurt. Work slowed to a crawl. Men leaned on staffs and rested on doorways. It was the moment Simeon and Levi chose. They were Dinah's full brothers, Leah's sons, and their anger had not cooled. They took swords, crossed the short distance to the city, and walked through the gate while the guards could barely lift a hand. They went straight to Hamor's house. The ruler died first. Shechem died next. The brothers brought Dinah out and led her toward the camp in a small column of dust. Behind them, the other brothers spread through the streets. With the men unable to fight, resistance barely formed. They killed every male. Then they gathered flocks, herds, donkeys, and everything in the houses. They led away women and children. The city that had spoken of alliance found itself emptied by the very family it hoped to absorb. The quiet that rose after the blades was the sound of a town learning that some debts do not close with silver. Jacob saw the dust first, and then the faces of his sons, their tunics marked by the work of the blade. Dinah walked among them, eyes set on the path. Relief and horror arrived together. He counted the living and then counted the cost. When his sons told him what they had done, he did not praise them. "You have brought trouble on me," he said. "The peoples around us will join together against us. We are few, they will strike and wipe us out." Simeon and Levi answered in one hard line, "Should our sister be treated as something to be taken and bartered?" The household moved soon after. God told Jacob to go up to Bethel and build an altar. Everyone handed over the foreign gods and the rings that went with them. Jacob buried the idols under an oak. A fear fell on surrounding towns, and no one pursued. At Bethel, he set a stone and poured oil over it, marking the place where, years earlier, he had seen a ladder in a dream and heard promises in the dark. Now he stood there older, with a daughter returned and with blood on his son's hands. The record did not polish heroes. It did not excuse Shechem's assault, and it did not excuse fury that turned into the death of a whole city. The account held both things at once, the harm done to Dinah and the harm done in her name. For families who rehearsed the story on the move, and for scribes who pressed letters onto parchment, the sequence weighed like stones on a scale. Power misused in a private room spread into blood in the street. A father's caution left space for sons to plan revenge. A town converted a proposal into a wound. The chain ran straight. Years later, Jacob gathered his sons and gave final words. He remembered, and he did not soften it. He told Simeon and Levi that their knives were instruments of violence, that their anger was fierce and their wrath cruel. He said they would be divided and scattered in Israel. The prediction came true in a way no one at Shechem could have foreseen. Simeon's portion would shrink and blend into Judah's. Levi would scatter not as raiders but as priests, moving town to town with duties at the altar instead of swords, their strength redirected but not forgotten. Dinah's name surfaced rarely after that day, and the silence said as much as any extra line could. She had been held in the house of the man who hurt her until her brothers took her out. She returned to her people because they made it so, at a cost they chose. Scripture did not tell what she said to her mother, or how long she sat without speaking, or whether she ever walked into another city. It did not say if she welcomed what her brothers did, or watched it with the same tight jaw her father wore when he heard the first report. It left her where history often leaves women, present at the center of events, and then mostly quiet on the page. If you stood in Shechem the next morning, you would have seen open doors and dropped tools, a courtyard rinsed of dust, and women gathering what remained for a road they did not choose. If you stood in Jacob's camp, you would have seen a father mapping the distances to the next threat, a sister back among her own, and brothers waking to what they had set loose. The justice they dealt felt simple in the heat of anger and complicated in the cool of dawn. Everyone carried something heavy out of that day, the weight of what was done to Dinah and the weight of what was done because of her. The line from the first stare in a market to the last body in the street ran through ordinary choices. A man who believed desire made a right, a father who measured risk by waiting, brothers who answered a violation with a city's death, and a town that followed leaders without asking what it signed. The story did not close with a clean moral. It stood as a record. It showed what people did and what followed. Thank you for listening to Divine Crime. Subscribe for more true stories from the most dangerous book ever written.